Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Welcome, everyone, to the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast. This is the podcast for Packer fans who aren't sure if they want to buy stock in the team. I am your host, Charles, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Marcus. Marcus, how are you?
Doing well, Chuck. How about yourself?
I'm great. You are officially talking to one of the newest owners of the Green Bay Packers. Can I get a round of applause?
You took the plunge. Very good.
Let's
Congratulations.
Go. I was, it's really fun to talk about now that I hit submit and actually paid, donated money to the Green Bay Packers. But I got to tell you, it was an internal battle I had, right? Because it's still the NFL just giving money to a multi-billion-dollar league and a multi-million-dollar corporation. But it ultimately came down to no matter which direction I went, I feel like I'd have some kind of regret, and I'd rather have some regret in having a piece of paper than not having it. So that's kind of what was the tiebreaker.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've been a stockholder for a while now, and I mean, it's not something that goes up in value or anything like that. Obviously, we don't have a say in what the team does, but it's kind of just to showcase that the Packers Nation will come together as a community and help out our team when they need it. You know what I mean? And it's just again one of those things that differentiates the fan base from others, I think.
I will say it is. I mean, obviously, everyone knows it's the only publicly owned, sports team in the U.S. From a very practical standpoint, Vikings fans, here we are in Minnesota doing the podcast. They'll make fun of you for donating money to the team, and you know what? I do have a problem with it, but I also don't. Right? If there's going to be a new roof on U.S. Bank, or they had to re-side U.S. Bank, shortly after it was built. A lot of that's done through tax dollar money. So at least in this case, it is big fans like us donating to the team, becoming stockholders, and it's not levied against, folks that could care less about Lambeau.
Yeah, for sure. And, it takes me off a little bit because, as Minnesota taxpayers, we had a hand in paying for the U.S. Bank Stadium.
True.
So that it's like, true. I wish there's, I feel like there should be a form on a box on the tax form that you can opt out because you're like, I'm not a fan, but just because we live here, we have to do it. But
I am excited to do the Green and Golden Boys live podcast from the owners meeting next year because I think we should make that happen.
Yeah, well, that would be awesome. I think we could probably do that.
Last thing on the stock, I do just have to point this out. I decided to read some of the fine print, and it's not even that fine. They're pretty upfront about what you're purchasing, but in there is some rules about owners and shareholders talking poorly about the NFL and about the Packers, and so much to the point where they even say that the commissioner could levy up to a $500,000 fine on anyone who breaks that rule. So I think you and I, we're pretty much not bandwagons, but fanboys that think the Packers can do no wrong. So I don't think you and I are in trouble, but man, now we got to be careful about what we release on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we should definitely be tiptoeing around kind of our commentary, but yeah, I think we're probably fine. I don't think they're going to worry too much about the two of us, but better to be safe than sorry, I guess. Why don't we talk a little bit about this Seattle Green Bay game? It wasn't the most exciting game ever. It was really fun to watch from my perspective, just because, like everybody is talking about, our defense was just dominant. Not something we've been used to saying the last couple of years.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, if the Seahawks would have put 3 points up at any point during that game, earlier in the game, that last drive, I probably would have kind of started turning off the TV and not really watching as closely. But I was watching to the very end to make sure that we kept that big donut up on the scoreboard.
I did turn the game off with about a minute left. myself, just because I was kind of like, my wife needed help with something, and I was like, all right, well, I think this one's in the bag. I think it's safe to walk away, but with Seattle in particular, I've been wrong in the past. So I'm glad to see the. Go ahead.
They were going all out to try and get something going and get some points on the board to just disrupt that zero.
Yeah, for sure. But the Packers kind of held strong, shut out the Seahawks, the first shutout in Russell Wilson's career as a starting quarterback for Seattle. So not a pretty big accomplishment. Not something to just brush aside. I'm hoping that this team can continue this defensive momentum moving into the Vikings game. We'll talk about that at a later time. But again, I mean, you talk about things that I feel like we've discussed as being weak points on this team. And I'm going to talk about Kevin King in particular. He had a really good game. I think he kept his guy to like 3 catches and less than 30 yards, which was again for somebody with the pedigree that they have on that offense, it says a lot. Surprised me a little bit. I hope he can continue playing well until we get Jair Alexander back. I mean, obviously after he comes back, but. Yeah, I mean, just a dominant performance from our defense, and hopefully our offense can kind of right the ship here these next couple weeks. But
and our preview of the game, we left out the prediction segment, and now it's really easy for me to say this because the game's over. I would have leaned towards a lower scoring game for the simple fact that both quarterbacks had missed time, with Russell significant time. So our score. Was kind of in line with what I was anticipating. I think I probably would have gone like a 24-17 Green Bay win, something along those lines. So like the style of game felt right based on that simple fact. But to your point, our corners in particular, Eric Stokes had that one play where it looked like Metcalf? Metcalf was wide open, and all of a sudden he just like turned on the burners with the ball still in the halfway through the air, and Stokes was able to break up that pass. And when you that half a second when you see a receiver that wide open, you're like, oh my God, that's a touchdown for sure. But yeah, I mean, good, huge kudos to specifically our corners. I mean, Rashawn Gary. I mean, you and I can stop saying I'm just waiting for Rashawn Gary to have that breakout game. He's had plenty of them now. He's I think something like the most rush quarterbacks in the NFL, or hurried quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Hopefully this arm doesn't slow him down or keep him out of this next game against the Vikings. But yeah, I mean, all around wonderful. Before we leave the corners though, was Kevin King's pick really a pick to you?
I've been going back and forth. I mean, when they replayed it, it did not look like a catch. Everybody's argument was that, well, if that had been a receiver, that would have been a catch. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, if that's true, then great. I don't agree with that though. I don't think that was an interception, but we lucked out there.
I don't think so either. I mean, when I watched it, I'm like, you dropped it. You dropped the ball. And I don't think that should be a touchdown either. To your point, that is technically the letter of the law. I was like, if it happened against us, or if I was a Seahawks fan, I would be pretty ticked off. That was reviewed, right? Turnovers are reviewed, so you can't blame the refs per se. But I thought that was an interesting call. While we're on the topic, did you think Aaron Rodgers recovered that fumble?
Oh, I mean, they called it a 50-50 ball, I think, right? And like with both players' arms locked around the ball. But I mean, I guess if it did look like they both had a grip on it, and it wasn't like Aaron Rodgers just had like his 2 hands on the edge, and the other player had it gripped real tightly. But yeah, I'm not sure about that.
I don't know if it was 50-50. I think it was more like 30-70 Seahawks player, from my perspective.
Just trying to remember off the top of my head, it did look like a 50, they each had, their forearm on one side of the ball. You know what I mean? So they kind of were both encasing it fully, but
it was, again, it was reviewed, and it wasn't necessarily the ref's fault if they got it wrong, because it was reviewed, and theoretically, if it's reviewed, you got it right. So all of that being said, Pete Carroll, I don't know, you probably saw this the day after the game. After getting shut out, after having, I think, now one of the worst defense in the NFL, blamed the refs for losing the game to the Green Bay Packers. What's your initial reaction to that, if you hadn't heard that already?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, first of all, a little bit unfair. I mean, they scored 0 points the entire game. You can't blame that on the refs. I mean, Yeah, I definitely say the Kevin King call interception was wrong. However,
Again, not the refs.
again, not the refs, and our defense had been playing them really well the entire game. So even if that had gotten ruled incomplete, there's no guarantee that they even get 3 points there anyway. That
Right.
said, take responsibility. I feel like we see this all the time in the NFL where, week to week you may not get the calls, or 1 week you may get the calls, and it kind of evens out over time. I think we'd like to believe, and to say that just kind of shows a lack of accountability on himself and his team. And I think it was poor judgment in the moment. I think if he could go back, he'd refute that statement.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get fined $500,000 from Roger Goodell, so I'm going to say the refs did it perfectly, and all those calls were correct. So I'm an owner
Roger,
now,
if
man.
you're
I got to
listening,
be
leave us
careful.
alone.
I got to be careful.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this offense. Obviously, we only put up 17 points. I think it's fair to say that Jordan Love perhaps could have won this game, given the defense only didn't give up any points. So, Aaron Rodgers wasn't necessarily the difference maker. Who proved to be the difference maker was AJ Dillon. I mean, heck of a game. Aaron Jones was having himself a game, but obviously he got hurt. We'll have an update on him here soon. But AJ Dillon, player, owner. If you saw his tweet, he also owns the team as well now. He got 2 touchdowns on the day and just overall looked very good. Not only in that power run, but also in that screenplay. A guy that big with linemen in front of him, like, good luck. Good luck, cornerbacks trying to get through that block and tackle him.
Well, and it's exactly what you like to see in November, getting into the colder part of the season at Lambeau. I mean, you've got a guy who weighs 240 pounds, a 6 foot tall bowling ball, half centaur running back who can catch out of the backfield, who has some speed. But I mean, to your point, when he gains momentum, it's like, good luck taking him down, and then, in the second half of the game, guys just couldn't physically bring him down. And I think that's exactly what you like to see this time of the year, because when you're able to get the ground game working and just kind of relentlessly ground and pound, that's the kind of stuff you're going to see. You're going to see him breaking a 50-yard play off of a 3-yard screen pass.
Oh, was that a screen pass where he just broke 3 tackles along the sideline and stayed in bounds? Or is that just a run?
I'm pretty sure it was a pass.
Yeah, it feels right.
Pretty sure it was a pass, but it may not have been. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little screen, just, he kind of a little out to the left, and then, forced 3 or 4 guys to miss. And then 50 yards later was kind of forced out of bounds. But, yeah, again, love to see that kind of thing. I think we're in a good position if we're only going to have Aaron Jones out a couple of weeks for AJ Dillon to kind of handle that load. We'll see what Patrick Taylor can bring to the table too. He had a couple of rushes, 3.5 a carry for only 2 carries, but he, he's a guy that may just come in, in relief type of situations. But I think all Packer fans can feel pretty good about, having AJ Dillon carry the load for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, if he's obviously an emerging star here in Green Bay, if our defense can stay right and our offense kind of continues improving, and I think with Aaron being back another week, kind of getting back in sync, we should definitely see a better game coming up here against the Vikings. Speaking of the Vikings, we don't want to preview that game yet. I just want to sit back for a second. And last week we talked about not making sure we don't say anything about this being the year or anything like that. But I do want to point out, when's the last time through week 10 that the Green Bay Packers have more wins than the rest of the division combined?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, and
that's insane.
I think we can thank the Lions for that one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we can thank them all, but yeah, the Lions with the big 0 is huge. But I mean, Vikings 4-5, I believe. Bears with 3 wins. 3 wins.
No,
So
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so 7 wins to 8. It gives us some space if we want to play for the division to drop a game or two, but obviously our sights are